I do actually like a couple of units on the Vampire Counts roster, and this is one of them, the Black Coach, a very unique single-entity Chariot. Currently, Reginald Puggington's going to be utilizing it against the High Elves, so let's have a look at these builds as they get ready to clash here. Zombies up front, we've got a second line of Skeleton Warriors, Sternsman in the center, a couple Blood Knights, a couple Bats, Terror Goose, and a Lamian Vampire Lord. Bit risky to go flying against the High Elves, but I've got a Lariel here. No direct response besides Tempest on her, some Lothern Seaguard, Dragonborn, Fireborn rather, and some more Dragon Princes, Dovahkiin Elves. Riding again, Rangers. Got a Necromancer here. Looks like just Forbidden Rod for some additional Winds of Magic. Yeah, pretty straightforward build. The Black Coach, though, I am a big fan against all Elven factions. It's just a great single-entity Chariot. So, what do you get? Base line, 80 charge bonus is pretty solid. Doesn't have the best weapon strength in the world, but pretty solid overall as well, with 20 bonus versus infantry, 90 AP, 30 base weapon damage. Only 10 melee defense is absolutely pitiful, but we'll get back to these defensive stats in just a minute. 78 speed, magic attacks as well. In terms of abilities here, like Norska, this has abilities that charge up as it is in melee kind of progressively, right? So you start with the first tier here, Black Size, an additional 36% charge bonus and 24% charge speed, so that charge bonus starts to go up. Additional armor-piercing weapon damage and fire damage, which specifically is arguably not great against the High Elves, but very nice in some other situations. And then, of course, 44% damage resistance and Strider, all said and done at the end of the day. Massive amount of damage resistance, making this thing surprisingly tanky once this is active. And, of course, Strider means you'll get those better uphill, downhill charges, pass through trees, you know, go through shallow water, all that jazz without suffering any debuffs. In particular, once this Black Size charge bonus is active, you're well over 100 charge, and it's quite strong at cycle charging, so we'll watch for that thing to make an impact. But High Elves here, commanded by Chosen One, very good player, going to charge in with these Dragon Princes, just start to whittle away the HP a little bit here. Dragon Princes, some of them will get bogged down in the zombies, but Blood Knights aren't necessarily in a position to immediately respond. Looks like we've also got Sisters of Avalorn here in the center as well, who I seem to have neglected. But right now, Lariel's chilling out here on the flank. She's a little bit vulnerable, but at the same time not. She can try and control the movement of these flying units, just does not want to get caught by the Blood Knights by any means. Black Coach also offers an additional terror piece. Personally, again, this is just my own bias because of the way I've been playing Vampire Counts. Recently, I would probably cut the Goose, take the Lamian on the ground, and maybe bring some additional heavy cavalry. Just use the Black Coach purely for terror here. Going to charge in the front of these spearmen, but basically provides a nice little anvil for some Blood Knights to go mobile hammer and anvil. They're going to immediately pull away, though, as the Goose gets hit by a Tempest. I believe, yeah, we're going to see an immediate Scepter of Stability for magic resistance from the Lamian. Probably her best ability, in all honesty, or item rather. It is what it actually is, but just gives that quick on-demand magic resistance to help resist that. Also, of course, the fire from Sisters of Avalorn does fire damage, but also magic damage, so you'll get the weakness to fire, somewhat counteracted by that magic resistance as well. So some nice kind of play and counterplay so far. The zombie lines have arrived, starting to get involved in combat. The Sternsmen are going to have to be careful there. There's this one key unit of Swordmasters, which is an interesting pick. I don't love Swordmasters in a lot of matchups. They're very good anti-infantry, but that's really all they're good for. Here, though, if they can get matched on the Sternsmen, that will be ideal for them. But we've got a big old pitched cavalry engagement. Yeah, all kind of centered around the Black Coach as the Blood Knights countercharge in the Dragon Princes. Got some Spearmen and Bats in here as well, all kind of as a result of this Black Coach, which is kind of wavering on its leadership. Black Coaches don't have the best leadership in the world. They can crumble pretty easily. But at the same time, with all these Knights in support, it's kind of pinning in some of these Dragon Prince models, utilizing its mass. Doesn't have the fire damage active yet, but it does have the charge bonus active. Oh, there now just barely the fire damage pops up, so the damage will go down significantly against Dragon Princes. But it's still something, provides that monstrous terror presence. Zooming back over the rest of the battlefield, the Assistive Avalorn getting summoned, and the Lamians dropping down for some combat. Lamians actually, most vampires, like actual vampires, have pretty solid stats. The Necromancer's obviously not so much, but the Lamian, 55, 60, definitely can fight High Elves no problem with that kind of a stat line. He's going to be getting in here, getting some work done. Out of all the Bloodline Lords, I don't love that the Bloodlines are in many ways more competitive than a lot of the Legendary Lords, which is why I tend to use just Necromancers when I play Vampire counts. But if I was going to pick one, I'd definitely pick the Lamian. She's got a lot going on that's beneficial. A little bit of a Heart of Avalorn helping to counteract that mean Terror Goose breath, and just to, heal up these Fireborn and other Dragon Princes. The Black Coach is also kind of mixed up in this combat. A little bit a bad situation for it. Granted, it does have the damage resistance and Stride are now active, so it's not like it's taking a whole lot of damage. 60 armor isn't a ton, but at the same time, it's enough. For some reason, I keep thinking that the Black Coach is more heavily armored. But, yeah, I have to say, the unit model, absolutely awesome as well. In 4K, the detail on here, got like Manfred's face on the side or something, I don't even know. And somebody's bumping around in the casket in the back. Very fun stuff. We've got the Ghost Driver here, who I never noticed before, has a spiky hood, which is, fun and unique. He's going to drive on out of there, but let's check in on the kills. Only 20 kills so far, about half an XP chevron. In terms of damage value, only 352 damage value dealt. So far, not a lot, but as the forces of the Vampire count start to thin out a little bit here in terms of support, a lot of the zombies and other units are starting to disappear. The Black Coach should get some time to start to shine here. Using that 109 charge bonus to rear charge the Dragon Princes again because of the fire damage here. Probably not super efficient, but it is, again, more presence to help with the Blood Knights and the Terror Goose, just to kind of try and do something here. Overcast Summon does do some miscast damage, which is unfortunate on the Lamian. She actually brings up some Skeleton Warriors here who will hold up somewhat better than zombies, although maybe not necessarily that much better. But yeah, the Black Coach going to move away now from the Dragon Princes and start to peel out and hopefully go after some of these kind of tattered infantry where it should be able to clean up quite a few kills. Leave the Dragon Princes to the Blood Knights, which have cycled out and are now cycling back in. Nice Invocation of Nehek, or Earthblood rather. It actually does miscast damage also on Ilario. Black Coach is loose. Nice little hit on the Sisters of Avalorn there, taking its time. These buffs do last quite a while as well. I believe, let's have a look here. Yeah, 90-second recharge if engaged in melee, so I'm not really sure. I would need to do some testing. It doesn't, on the tooltip, it's not 100% clear to me. It seems like they'll just stay active, right, if you stay in melee, but I guess we'll see. Keep an eye on those buffs. Circling back around to try and rear charge this blob again. The Lamian's also trying to get involved, just priority tasking the Dragon Princes. They are getting healed, though, during this time of the Star of Avalorn, so it's really just about heal capping these guys at this point, potentially getting a Terror route and breaking them off, although they are immune to Psychology from Lariel's ability currently, so not going to get Terror routed. Another Invocation of Nehek. No, Earthblood. Just topping up those Dragon Princes. The one actually does rout, but they should come back. They've got a decent amount of HP left. Unless these Dragon Princes can fully peel, get up and around, and start to chase them down. But you can see how there's still a lot of supporting infantry left for the High Elves. This Black Coach really needs to start thinning this stuff out. The Vampire counts are going to have a chance to win through. I mean, balance power is still very close, but anytime you're in position with the Vampire counts, we don't have your support units, it's going to be bad. Skeleton Warriors are still out there. Don't see the Sternsmen anywhere, which means they probably got eaten by the Swordmasters, who, yeah, got a lot of kills and probably a lot of damage value as well, if that's the case. Let's have a look here. Yeah, 1,200 damage value, so they do pay for themselves. And since we can't guarantee all of those were zombies, perhaps it was the Sternsmen. The Blood Knights peeling out. Black Coach getting caught up again by the Fireborn. Gonna take some serious damage here, but it's got the damage resistance. Doing a little bit of punchback. Still has the fire damage, but it's there. And it's not like, again, the Dragon Princes can't take it down super fast because of that damage resistance, so... Goose comes in to bail it out. It gets loose. A little bit of a traffic jam. The Black Coach, again, going to be used to kind of hold the Dragon Princes back from Goose here and try and allow him back up in the air. Let's see how it works. It is holding up quite a bit of mass at this point, but Goose, unfortunately, gets the Scepter of Stability to counteract Crumbling, since Crumbling counts as magic damage. A little bit of a heal in there as well for High Elves, even though basically everything is heal capped except this infantry. Another zombie summon. To 70 kills so far on the Black Coach. Let's see, the Necromancer running for his life so he can continue to stroke that Forbidden Rod. But Blood Knight's coming back here, and this should be a pretty nice charge. Yeah, decent stuff on those limey Dragon Princes. Actually breaks both units of infantry as well, so finally some of the infantry support for High Elves is well and truly done for. I mean, we'll see. Maybe they can get chased off by those summoned zombies. But Black Coach now going to peel up and around, a little bit of a side charge. Let's see, can it actually... it does eat a model there, so even with the fire resistance, I mean, it's with the charge bonus being as high as it is, it will still do enough damage, it looks like. It will do damage, let's say. Enough damage. I don't know about one shot a fully healthy unit model. Probably all of these models have taken significant HP damage. 4 nice little charges in there, up to 83 kills. The Swordmasters are a super juicy target, too. They're just asking to get cleaned out by this Black Coach. Dragon Prince is mostly done for. The Fireborn, will they be seen off? There's 7 of them left. They are avoiding the edge of the map here in their route, though. But, yeah, now only 5. Very doubtful they're going to come back. Lariel's still alive, though. Goose drops down on some spears. Some Silver Guard. The Silver Guard, of course, magic resistance will help somewhat against the Black Coach, but Goose crumbles. With that, you can see the Black Coach kind of turns, wanting to play off the support of the summoned zombies, which aren't long for this world. They're on their middle stage of summoning. So let's fast forward a little bit here. It's going to be a long late game, and now the Black Coach starts to come into its own. Has some nice, clean charging lanes. Yeah, fun stuff. Nice little splash attack there. Lariel's going to come in, countercharge. There are a handful of Blood Knights, of course, left as well. They're going to get a nice charge. Don't want to stand and fight against the Spearmen for too long. There's not a lot of HP left, but a lot of people have been asking me recently about my thoughts on Chariots. I will be making some videos about how to use Chariots, but I think they're definitely still very much viable in the current meta, especially single model Chariots. I mean, they're still arguably just as good as they were before. But one thing is always be charging. ABCs. You gotta remember with your ABCs. This is true of Shock Cavalry as well. You can see the Blood Knight's doing a great job of that. ABCs, what does that mean? Always be charging. Just cycle charge as much as you can. As soon as you get a charge, pull away, charge into another unit. Just do whatever you can to keep that charge bonus active, because that's where the primary damage output comes from, right? In both the Blood Knights and the Black Coach, and any Chariots or Shock Cavalry for that matter. But Chariots especially, more so than any other unit type, you gotta always be charging. Anything really, including monsters that have, say, more than 50 charge bonus, 50 or more. Those things should be charging. That's the end of the story, right? So it is somewhat micro-intensive, does require a little bit of practice, but like this is beautiful. Just in and out, charging in, pulling away, charging in again. And this is now legal within the banner rules because Blood Knights are able to continuously cycle charge. If it were just the single entities left, Black Coach would have to stand and fight. But up to 125 kills now, 3 XP chevrons. If we check back in on the damage value, 2,000 damage value dealt. Considering how cheap this thing is, that is super cost effective. So Alariel screaming here, trying to yell some threats at the vampire lady. Lamian doing her thing. She's probably getting pretty low at this point. Not too low, actually. Just about at her healing cap. But another thing, too, about ABCs is that charge can apply to single entities. You guys will see A lot of replays like Kazarak, for example. Any chariots, even like, you know, Cetra. I've done this too, even with something as low as Volkmar. I mean, Volkmar's only got 50 charge bonus, but you see those attack animations done on Elariel? The horse is biting her, and the ghosty boy doing a swoop, and sweep, I guess. Those attacks do hit single entities, right? And with that high of a charge bonus, you're basically guaranteed a hit. So you should even cycle charge single entities with chariots, and especially single entity chariots. But even non-single entity chariots, cycle charging single entities, such as lion chariots, for example, those like high armor piercing, you know, like the Gorbis, even a boar chariot potentially, cycle charge an armored monster, and you can get some pretty good value from it. Blood Knights, though, are pretty much gone, which means at this point, more or less, these guys have to stay engaged. With Lamian going to try and go after Elariel, but Elariel has the benefit of having the supporting troops, handful of Swordmasters left, and I do say handful. They are immediately going to rout probably on this next charge. See the sweep and swoop, just decapitates an elf there. Drops that guy's arm off. And now comes down to just screaming Elariel versus the Black Coach and the Lamian. And she is screaming. Lamian's very, very low. 527 or so HP and climbing a little bit from the hunger, so she'll be able to regenerate probably to her healing cap. Elariel, 47, 67. That 67 melee defense is going to be very hard to get through without that charge bonus. And now Black Coach having to not cycle charge and just stay in melee here is very unfortunate. Although, since this unit of Spearmen is back, probably could peel. I would have to look at the exact ruling, but probably could peel and charge that Spearman. Very kind of interesting endgame here with this duel. Elariel just yelling light. But that 67 melee defense is so hard to get through. Black Coach does actually eventually peel and go after the Spearman. This is going to allow it potentially a rear charge avenue to hit Elariel. Maybe you get a little bit of extra damage in. You can see she gets hit, and this is good when you can have single entities in a surround. They're both not fighting from the same direction. But Lamian goes down here, just from crumbling. It's now just the Black Coach versus Elariel. And Elariel has actually taken some hits as that charge bonus is still somewhat active. But crumbling starts to kick in, which, you know, won't do a ton of damage, but considering this thing's got 11 melee defense, Elariel's pretty likely to get some hits. I'd actually missed that attack there. Very impressive. But yeah, a little bit of a hit there. You can see how she's not really taking any hits, even though the Black Coach, I think, is doing attack animations. You can see the horse is kind of nomming on her, at least attempting to. But yeah, unfortunate Black Coach in that kind of prolonged melee engagement against a large entity with high melee defense doesn't quite cut the mustard. But a very, very close battle. A big thanks to Reginald Puggington for sending that one in, and I have to say, a 3,400 damage value for the Black Coach at the end there. I almost think maybe, and granted, using it to kind of two things in the early part of the battle. Number one, Chosen One was trying to focus it with his Dragon Princes, so it was having a hard time operating as a result. And the second thing is, Puggington was also kind of using it to block in the Dragon Princes at points. I almost wonder from Puggington's perspective if he had it on the infantry during that time, if he maybe could have evened things out a little bit so his infantry didn't get so steamrolled. Maybe that would have changed the outcome in the late game slightly. Hard to say. Still a very, very close battle. And yeah, like I said, the Vampire front line just getting absolutely slaughtered. I mean, if you can slaughter undead, even the Sternsmen getting just destroyed, I would imagine, by the Swordmasters, because that's the only thing that could really decisively destroy them like that. And yeah, no corpse cart support for them or anything means they will just get dumped on. The Blood Knights, though, both massive value. One of them somehow almost doubling its cost in terms of damage output, which is just insane. A lot of that is inflated pretty heavily because of these super expensive Dragon Princes heal capping. But it's still quite a bit of damage, and you still have to deal that damage, right? So the Black Coach, though, a lot of this is against the infantry, like this higher value stuff, especially like the Swordmasters and Silverengard and so on. It's honestly pretty impressive. I am a huge fan of Black Coach against the Elven factions in general. I think it's kind of a little bit of an underrated tool. I know a lot of players perceive Vampire counts to have bad matchups against all the Elves. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you can definitely do some things in those matchups, and it largely revolves around heavy cavalry and like black coaches and shock units that have high charge, because elves tend to have low HP. Makes sense then. It kind of follows along that units with high charge and shock damage would be good against them as a general rule. So we'll kind of probably get into that discussion more in future videos. Goose, also 3,000 damage value on him. Great job. Love the Lamian in this matchup and in a lot of matchups too. She's an awesome, great value lord as well. Yeah, on Chosen One side, Ilario getting some pretty good damage in. The Spearmen, actually, you don't see high elf Spearmen actually pay for themselves super often, but they do here. Rangers don't, even though they got a lot of kills. Silver and Guard, though, are awesome in this matchup. One place you can use Swordmasters as well, as long as you can keep them protected and deployed against the right unit, which is primarily Graveguard. They will help counter Graveguard here pretty efficiently. Lothar and Seaguard also do a nice job. Sisters of Avalorn don't quite pay for themselves, but they're here. The One Dragon Prince somehow doesn't pay for itself, but the Fireborn definitely do. So, yeah, just to kind of finish up on the Black Coach, it's interesting because there's not a lot of super comparable units for the Black Coach in terms of like cheaper single entity Chariot. I mean, you have like the Doom Wheel, obviously, but that's a little bit of a different thing. The Doom Wheel is more of a missile chariot, not quite so heavily charge-oriented, quite a bit slower. It has like kind of different melee attack animations. It's also more expensive as well. 350 points more expensive, so it's not the greatest comparison in the world, but same melee attack, believe it or not. Black coaches are have more health, and of course the damage resistance kind of charge up thing going on. Sacrifice that for some armor, and I mean undead, so leadership should be considered basically the same. Yeah, much higher charge bonus, but no missile attack. The Doom Wheel also starts with more base weapon damage. I mean, even with this extra 50% armor piercing too, I mean, that adds, what, an extra 45 armor piercing on that, so you're going to be up to 165 weapon strength. You're still not as much as the Doom Wheel, I mean, by more than 100, so that's pretty significant. 30 bonus versus infantry as well, versus, yeah, 20 bonus versus infantry, so you do get a little bit more, it seems, from the Doom Wheel, but the thing about this thing is, again, it's kind of, you use them a little bit differently. This thing definitely is a pure chariot in that it needs to be charging always. And there was even a somewhat famous replay from, well, what, probably 4 or 5 months ago now, where Falcons actually cycle charged the Green Knight to death with a Black Coach, which was very interesting. But yeah, considering the meta in many ways revolves around cheap single entity terror units, like going with a wide, like relatively strong kind of mid-tier build with just a couple of cheaper monsters that cause terror. The Black Coach does fill that role pretty well for the vampire counts, especially in matchups where you don't want to take ethereal units, because, like, obviously against high elves, Ilario has that AoE magic damage effect that also gives immune to psychology, so basically you're insane not to take this against vampire counts, right? Like, it just gives you easy magic damage. This one here, Bunavisha, gives immune to psychology and magic damage, both of which are very applicable against vampire counts. So as a result, and just because high elves, believe it or not, actually do have pretty good magic damage tools, I don't love ethereal units against them. That's your cheaper terror options with vampire counts, right? Black Coach does offer another alternative there. Likewise, again, the high shock damage, good against high elves, great for disrupting missile lines as well. It's good against, Empire. Potentially Bretonia also, I might take it in those two matchups as well. Kind of against like the balanced, quote-unquote balanced factions. Doesn't work as well against higher Massa though, which is why I'd probably forego against greenskins. Maybe if you want it for the cheap terror there, it's great against goblins, but it will get caught up on orcs and trolls and things, so a little bit harder to make that work there. But yeah, I mean, maybe I'm missing out on something, but at 1100, it as a single entity chariot is cheaper than a lot of these kind of high-tier armor-piercing multi-model chariots, such as Lions, right? So it is great value for its cost if you can use it effectively. It does require some micro, and it's not perfect in every matchup, but it does give you some nice, cheap single-entity terror presence, very mobile, and has some kind of nice, fun, unique things like the damage resistance and the fire damage and so on. Great against Norska potentially too, because of the fire damage, maybe. Although again, if you're using it to like attack monsters there, I don't know. In theory, on paper, as long as you don't get too bad of an engagement against Skin Wolves, like it has magic and fire potentially, both of which counter Skin Wolves, right? So anyway, I'm just kind of rambling at this point. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching this one. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.